Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this community showdown between the Empire and the Wood Elves. It's going to be the dreaded Rubber Duck of War facing off against Ductor, aka Dactor. So it should be quite a bit of fun. If you guys haven't seen a Rubber Duck of War's YouTube channel, make sure to check him out. He is an awesome caster and a great dude. So as far as this battle goes, very, very awesome Empire build. So the meta of Empire against Wood Elves, which actually, I think nowadays that Empire actually has quite a substantial advantage over Wood Elves. With this style of play, what you basically do is you just get, like, say troopers in the front. So swordsmen, Sigmar Sons, it could be flagellants as well if you want to, although they're a little bit more vulnerable. You just bring 4 huntsmen, a couple knights of the Blazing Sun, and you just like slow push them forward. It's very strong. But this seems to have some of those influences, and yes, of course, you bring Volkmar as well. So Volkmar is here in the front, which I love. He pretty much counterplays Dryads single-handedly, fire damage, and has beautiful AoEs with the Soulfire Bombardment, so he can really shut down Wood Elf rush builds. We got the State Troopers. We do also have the Double Huntsman, which of course is very, very meta here, but a little bit of a difference aside from that. We do have Silver Bullets, which you do see as well to counter tree play, but we got Free Company Militia and a Steam Tank, which are relatively off meta in this matchup. And yeah, double Free Company Militia in the back. So that is very, very different for sure. So basically at the cost of having like 3 Knights of the Blazing Sun to counter the Wood Elf Cavalry, because Knights of the Blazing Sun defeat like Wood Elf Cavalry very decisively. And on top of that, they also just annihilate Wood Elf Infantry. So it's like a cure-all. That's why you typically see triple Knight of the Blazing Sun in this matchup, or double is fine as well. But a more defensive build from the Empire could be using the Steam Tank's cannon to blast down some of the Wood Elf Cavalry, and the Free Company Militia to give a little bit of poke and shot against the advancing cavalry. So quite cool. Halberds as well. And Light Wizard. Light Wizard is coming in with Nets as well as Barona's Time Warp. And that appears to be it. So for the forces of Dactor, we do have a Glade Lord at the front with Pravenoth Ramo, triple Way Watcher. One of the several ways to play this matchup. But yeah, the Way Watchers, again, can be quite effective, backed up by a fair amount of Wood Elf Cavalry, Sisters of Thorn, Wild Riders, no Stag Knights, and it looks like Spears, a Life Caster, and an Arrow of Kernus character. Basically just a Snipe Empire Artillery. Now, a huge mistake in the beginning here by Dactor. He sends in the Glade Lord and basically gives a ton of free damage to his opponent. Now, if the net had been on standby, for example, if the net had been sitting here and just dropped it, that would have been game right there. It would have been lost and the Empire would have won. But, again, for all of our sakes, I'm happy that didn't happen because now we get an awesome replay. So the Way Watchers just kind of lurking in the shadows. They could shoot the Steam Tank. They could shoot the Huntsmen. I think are still invisible at this point. Yeah, they're still in stock mode. So, a couple decent targets. You could also go after Sigmar Sons. They only have the Bronze Shield, so that could potentially be quite nice as well. It looks like the Silver Bullets did take a pretty substantial amount of volley fire, though, being brought down to about 60%, so certainly not a bad start there. Now, Huntsmen and other units will be advancing up soon, I am sure, being purposefully left back to stay out of range of the Way Watchers, which is certainly a very smart play here by the Rubber Duck. And here comes the Sigmar Sons. Another volley going in should nail the Free Company Militia, who unfortunately were kind of stacked on top of the Huntsmen, who were, I believe, just came out of hiding anyway. So yeah, a little bit of a 2-for-1 value right there. Now the Meme Tank in the back could just sit and shoot at the Glade Lord the entire game and really test Dactor's micro. If Dactor were to slip up for like even a second, for example, the Steam Tank could blast it like once or twice, and that's going to force Earthbloods on it, and no Wood Elves are going to enjoy that. In the back, Wild Riders appear to have taken a little bit of damage from the Meme Tank, but the Meme Tank, I think, has now switched targets, or maybe it is sitting on the Wild Riders. Arrows of Kernus trying to be used to snipe the Light Wizard, and used to pretty good effect for sure. Thankfully for the Rubber Duck, a couple of those shots did miss. I've had situations where they all hit, and then, your caster's just dead early. That's one of the reasons why, oftentimes against the Wood Elves, I sometimes bring either a caster on foot or just hide them here until like the main fighting starts, because in the beginning, they're going to be like laser focused on that. But that's a mistake I've made many times where my caster just like straight up dies. And at that point, you're fighting at a huge deficit. You can still win if your build is very efficient, but it's very, very tough. So Volkmar moves forward, does take a shot right in the old mustache, and he is able to pull back here. Going to be moving through the Sigmar Sons. And where will the Way Watchers shoot next? Halberds are also not a bad choice. It does remove a lot of the anti-cavalry tools. Halberds are unshielded and really, really can't get mulched. Sometimes you'll see people bring spearmen with shields and kind of fill a similar role with shielded units, but the Halberds, definitely a little bit more effective in combat, but a little bit more vulnerable as well. Huntsmen do get nuked right there. That's a very, very good play. Focusing down the Huntsman is certainly quite smart. Balance of power in the favor of the Wood Elves. Initially, quite a bit of damage has been taken on the Huntsman. The caster is quite low. Silver Bullets back here. I think, Free Company Militia. And the Meme Tank has advanced up with the main army. So here's the Meme Tank here. And Volkmar the Grim, of course, is healing. So the balance of power, though it is Wood Elf favored right now, it's not like that bad of a situation. They should be totally fine. And this is where the Empire build really is potentially going to suffer a little bit in not having cavalry. In a lot of situations, you could be corralling the Wood Elf army and forcing fights and things like that. But in this case, without cavalry, you kind of have to slow push them, which works for sure. It can work, but it does give the Wood Elves a little bit more kind of authority to act first here and pick their fights, whereas with a little bit of mobility, you can kind of force the issue a little bit. Another arrow of Kernus going down. Very, very nasty stuff from the Light Wizard, and the Light Wizard's going to be at negative 17. Hasn't really been able to do much. I don't think we've seen a single net or banishment this game, so the price has been paid, and I believe there still are more charges of arrows of Kernus between the Waystalker and the Glade Lord, so we'll see what happens. Another nice volley right there. You can see the Free Company Militia getting melted, but they're more or less a chaff unit. Not going to be the worst loss in the world, but the Bounce Fire will keep ebbing in the favor of the forces of the Wood Elves. That's right. But Volkmar the Grim is still a problem. You know, if, for example, the Way Watchers use their ammo killing everything else and Volkmar is still healthy, Volkmar can solo armies. You know, there's nothing here that's really good against Volkmar the Grim or the Steam Tank, so I think that is... If there is going to be a saving grace for Rubber Duck here, I think that's going to be it. It's going to be his big armor and the Way Watchers using their ammo to kill other things. And then, yeah, that'll be the jam. So here comes a shot. Looks like it's going into halberds. As we talked about, halberds have no defensive mitigation against that missile play, so they will be paying a pretty steep price there as they get blasted by the Way Watchers. In the meantime, the Glade Lord does rotate around the wings, and it looks like Dactyr is maybe looking like he wants to take some sort of an engagement here as the Sigmarites kind of just continue to slow push them into the corner. Still gonna have to deal with Dryads, and without Knights of the Blazing Sun, the Dryads will be a little bit tougher. They do uptrade against, or trade well against Swordsmen, I should say. Sigmar Suns will decisively defeat a Dryad unit just because of how good their stats are. 41, 41, 30, compared to 32, 32, you know, 28. So, I mean, Sigmar Suns really, really pack a lot of punch. They are a great unit. I think one of the best RORs actually on the entire roster, as a matter of fact. So the Way Watcher moving in, and or Waystalker, excuse me, and getting a shot off on Volkmar the Grim, but there is going to be a response from the State Troopers trying to force him back here. And the Waystalker doesn't want to be tied up in melee with a bunch of haggard State Troopers, so I would imagine he will be pulling back there, or I guess just sitting in combat and you know enjoying his vacation here with these Sigmarites. Here on the side, Glade Lord getting shot. Earthbloods, of course, are on the table, and it looks like the Light Wizard has come back, so Rubber Duck has gotten his caster back in business. If you could avoid arrows of Kernus, honestly, maybe just hiding it in the trees back there until, you know, the last arrow of Kernus volleys have been used. I'm not sure. I wasn't quite keeping track if they have been, so we'll have to check there. Anyways, more volleys coming in. Does hit the Huntsman. Only kills a couple models, and that was a pretty cost-effective trade for Rubber Duck. He pulled back, only lost like 5 Huntsmen for a full volley from, you know, over 3,000 gold worth of firepower, so I would say that's a pretty damn good exchange. Now, Dactyr has not activated his cavalry yet. I'm surprised we're not seeing them like move up here and hammer these swordsmen who are a little bit overextended. A couple units that you could potentially pressure, but I think he's maybe worried about the silver bullets. Probably doesn't know where they are. They're currently hidden, right? So they could get some nice work in. His Huntsmen do unleash a little bit of a salvo fire here. Is there going to be a net? Looks like the Light Wizard will be dropping its first net here, and this is going to be nice, for sure. The Huntsmen and Halberdiers should be able to push in and really punish the Wild Riders here. And here comes the volley. You can see the silver bullets moving across. Spearmen retreating from the Dryads. Dryads from so far away look so funny. The Black Orcs look like giant hockey players. I don't even know what they look like, but when you zoom in, obviously, it looks more practical. But when you're zoomed out, it kind of like rubber bands them together. Really funny stuff. That was a good net, though. Does break the Wild Riders. Over here, you can see that the Free Company Militia unleashing their haggard pistols into the Sisters of Thorn, who are sitting a little bit idle as well. And Volkmar the Grim moving in to go after the Dryads, which is great for him. He's got his pimp altar here. And I actually thought about getting his tabletop variants of this, right? Getting the big war altar. I do have him on foot in tabletop, but I do not have his big altar. The only altar I really have is a Celestial Hurricanum, but I think it'd be pretty cool to actually get that one in tabletop. But the Glade Lord getting popped pretty good in the face. It looks like she got a little bit caught up in melee as Dactyr was perhaps microing some of his cavalry elsewhere, which is a huge catch for the Rubber Duck of War. Although the Pravenoth Ramus, I think we saw one, so I think there are some that perhaps aren't on the table here. So it looks like the Glade Lord will be pulling back. Dactyr's Lifecaster very, very out of position here for an Earthblood. So the Empire might be able to actually finish this off. Now, here comes the Wild Riders with Shields, moving into these old bowmen here. And that should be enough to shatter them. I think they straight up just got shattered by that charge. And now the Wild Riders with Shields are going to be bouncing into the Huntsman here. There's no Empire mass aside from the Steam Tank to really stop them in Volkmar. So the Wild Riders should be able to just bounce through and really do some lethal damage. And yeah, massive, massive volley fire coming in from the Way Watchers there. Able to just nuke down those silver bullets. So yeah, really, really good value here from this one unit of Wild Riders. The Halberds are going to be moving in to try and intercept and get their anti-large attacks to wear down some of these deer cavalry. Volkmar the Grim also going to be helping, and the Dryads doing a good job. Pushing back swordsmen should be able to decisively defeat Halberds as well. And Dactyr is able to get a heal on the Glade Lord, but then a massive cannonball from the clutch Steam Tank of the Gods gets a huge shot and might actually break that Glade Lord off the battlefield. That could be a game-changing play right there. And again, just like we talked about earlier, I think we're starting to get to that point where it's like, yeah, there's not a lot of anti-armor in this old Wood Elf army aside from the Way Watchers, and ammunition's getting a little bit sparse as they now start to shoot into Volkmar. I think right now, perhaps Dactyr realizes that he needs to make sure that all of the remaining ammunition is used to kill Volkmar, because everything else in the Sigmarite army outside of the tank and Volkmar can be killed by Dryads and Cavalry effectively. But Volkmar and the tank, I think every ounce of ammunition has to be used on them. And thankfully, there's no healing for the steam tank. That is a pretty funny tactic to heal up a steam tank with like the lore of life. It makes the most sense. Although I suppose like the crew could be getting battered inside, and you know you're actually healing the crew, and therefore the steam tank heals. Yada yada. You guys get the picture. There's some sort of justification you could make. Sisters of Thorn popping the Shield of Thorns. Going to be bouncing around, and now they shall be getting an excellent charge here into the Free Company Militia. They got their lances or spears somewhat couched, although they do these like overhand swings. And the Free Company Militia aren't, quite as weak as handgunners in combat. They will hold a little bit longer. A handgunner unit would have buckled almost instantly, but they do stand and fight for a moment, allowing Volkmar to maybe come in with the net of Amatoch support and really get some nice work in there. So the Meme Tank continues to roll back, perhaps dropping some steam shots here on the Sisters of the Thorn. The Wood Elves, as expected, the Dryads winning most of their fights, although losing over here in a 2v1 situation against the Halberds does indeed make sense. And now the volleys continue to shoot in, getting some nice work into the Halberds, but you can see the Mounts of Power is really reflecting the Waywatcher ammunition situation. Like without, like what's going to kill Volkmar in the tank? Nothing. There's just going to be like terror routes. I mean, I guess Eternal Guard are okay. Like Eternal Guard versus Steam Tank is one thing, but Eternal Guard versus Volkmar with Soulfire Bombardments and perhaps Banishments that he might have in the back pocket is going to be probably too much for the Wood Elves to handle. And you can see the Mounts of Power starting to reflect that as the Meme Tank does shoot into those Sisters of Thorn back there. And there, I guess there's a Waystalker still. He's got a fair amount of ammo. Volkmar is, healing capped now, so everything you get on him is significant. And the Waystalker does have 16 shots left with its, 407 missile strength? Yeah, not a lot of armor piercing on that, but it's still not insignificant. So Dryads moving across. Sigmar Sons are very healthy, which is quite problematic for the Wood Elves. It's going to take probably 2 units of Dryads to wear those bad boys down. And the Waywatcher's moving up, waiting for perhaps Volkmar to stop moving for a second. And here comes a big shot into the Steam Tank. Oh, God, look at the damage. That was so good. That Steam Tank just got melted. No healing for that. The Light Wizard here also would potentially be a good snipe if one of the Waywatchers could kind of line up sights. I think that would just be 100% a free kill. But nonetheless, going into the Meme Tank a little bit, switching on to Volkmar, a little bit of split fire for anyone who's ever played 40k. You all know how well split fire works. And yeah, the Waystalker tied up by the Spearman here, so buying a little bit of time for Volkmar on his Pimp Wagon to get in here, killing the Waywatchers here, the Weight Watchers as we love to call them, that do indeed. I guess they watch your weight by just, ending your life, and they're, you're going to lose weight from there. So that is how they watch your weight. But they have one volley left. The other Waywatchers piling in to help against these State Troopers, and it looks like they're completely out of ammunition. So what you see is what you got right now. We have the Spellsinger of Life, plus the Dryads fighting here against Sigmar Sons, maybe with a heroic character. Oh, she was like doing some weird anime shit, like picking up that character. Okay, yeah, so maybe with the support of the character, the Dryads will win. I think each of her attacks will take out a fair amount of the Sigmar Sons models. Bounce Fire has kind of normalized a little bit. The damage that Volkmar and the tank have taken is quite substantial. And Volkmar needs to just do everything he can to finish off this Waystalker now. If he can finish off the Waystalker, that will take away a lot of weapon strength, a lot of ammunition. That is still here on the battlefield. So the Grim one with the Grand Hammer of Sigmar, rocking 54 melee attack, should be able to just absolutely destroy that Waystalker. I don't see him coming back anytime soon. So more Spearmen moving up, going to be engaging the Eternal Guard and Dryads. A high model count, 79 against 32 and 40. So yeah, we'll see how it goes for those Spearmen. Sigmar Sons here doing an okay job fighting against these characters. Looks like the Wood Elves are potentially going to be winning this fight and this fight with a nice rear charge from Dactyr. He does get into the back of those Sisters of Thorn. The Spearmen, not the best leadership on the Sigmarites without their leadership core nearby, so they probably will be breaking due to that rear charge. And then it basically just comes down to Yold Volkmar and the tank, which I think might be a little bit too much to handle. There's a little bit too much stopping power between those two characters. Do a little bit of fast forwarding as the Meme Tank does chase down some of these units. Volkmar takes a little bit of poke from the Sisters of Thorn, and the steam cannons are being unleashed, backed up by some swordsmen. Bounce of power still pretty Sigmarite favored. Now, heal going down right here. The heal will heal up some of the Eternal Guard as well as Dryads, both of whom are, I guess, kind of useful here. Dryads against the Halberds and Spears against some of the monsters certainly serve their purpose. The Spellweaver of Life might want to pile in here maybe and start attacking the Steam Tank. She could do some damage to it. Steam Tank, I guess the healing cap doesn't matter for the Steam Tank. There's no Empire healing, but Volkmar is indeed at about 1600, but he is an absolute raid boss. Very, very tough to take care of. I think Volkmar is hands down the strongest lord for the Empire in multiplayer. Franz is good as well, a little bit more situational, whereas Volkmar, you can almost bring him in every single matchup, and like he's still a liability. Like even if he's not effective against things, like his buffs are still really good. He heals, he's durable, terror routes, so like just brings so much to the table. Has a free banishment. And yeah, his buffs are always going to be pretty damn solid. And even, you know, Horsemar the Grim. Volkmar on a horse is a pretty formidable pick in a couple matchups as well. I mean, still not as good as the Altar in my opinion, but it can be. He can ride with the cavalry and drop some nice buffs. So Dactyr getting in against the Steam Tank does get some damage, but I don't think the Wood Elf Cavalry will hold up too well once the Steam Cannon starts blasting here. Although that was a pretty fortunate attack. It kind of like shot out the back there and tried to attack just that one model. But if the Steam Cannon starts shooting into the blob, it will really, really break their leadership. Empire Halberds moving back into support. Sigmar Sons fighting to the last. Did get some okay damage on that character considering. And Volkmar is now moving in. That's going to be a problem. When Volkmar and the tank unify and they do the, you know, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Predator handshake with the biceps just flexing, just massive steroid use, you know, that's going to be a problem. I don't know if the Wood Elves will be able to handle the amount of bro that's going to be going on between the Steam Tank as well as Volkmar the Grim here. So the Steam Tank unifies with the Halberds, Volkmar moves over there, Soulfire Bombardment, and that ends the game. GG, well played. It was a really fun one between Rubber Duck and Dactyr, or Ductor as he was playing under today. And it was a cool build, yeah, cool variation. It's like, it's off meta, but it certainly had its play, right? For some of the Free Company Militia, I'm not sure. I didn't get much of a chance to evaluate them compared to just having more you know, Huntsmen. Huntsmen are just so goddamn good in this matchup. But the Steam Tank went apeshit. Oh my god, 2,700, and Volkmar got about 1,600, of course. You know, a couple small mistakes here, of course, letting the Lord, you know, take that kind of damage early. But yeah, perhaps the Waywatcher ammo needed to be more on the big vehicles considering. But like, you don't really have a choice. If you don't like focus down the Huntsmen and the guns, then they're going to wreck you. So it kind of put Dactyr in a hard situation. But still, amazing value. I mean, 2,100, 23, and 24. Jesus, man, what a game. So well played to these two champs. Check out Rubber Duck on YouTube, and that will be it for now. Take care of yourselves, my friends.